Now left sided dominance versus the right sided dominance of the coronary artery. What is this concept basically? Very simple. The artery that supplies the posterior descending artery, I think if you recall in our anatomy dissection days we had a left anterior descending artery, and typically you see that left coronary artery, and you have a right coronary artery, and you have a posterior descending interventricular artery. This posterior interventricular artery has got two ways of originating. Suppose the artery that supplies the posterior descending artery and the posterolateral artery, if it is the right coronary artery, then you call such a kind of coronary circulation as the right dominant coronary circulation. And suppose if the circumflex artery, which is the branch of the left coronary artery, supplies the posterior descending and posterolateral instead of right coronary, then you call it as a left dominant type of circulation. Then what do you mean by codominant? If the posterior descending artery is supplied by right coronary and the posterolateral artery is by the circumflex coming from the left coronary, then you call it as a codominant type of coronary circulation. So 60% of general population are all right dominant generally, that is their posterior descending and also posterolateral, both of them arise from the right coronary artery. 25% are codominant and 15% are left dominant is what need to be remembered. If the individual is left dominant and let us say he has an occlusion, then what will happen? If the blockade is there in the left dominant circulation, then the posterior half of the interventricular septum and the left ventricular wall, which is supplied by the left circumflex, both of them will suffer the ischemia. Suppose if he is a right dominant individual, then half of the interventricular septum, which is supplied by the RCA, and the right ventricle SA node, AV node and all this, which are also by the RCA inferior wall, etc., they all become affected. So you are very sure what is the importance of these two types of circulations. So what would be the answer, doctors? If the circumflex artery is giving rise to posterior interventricular, then typically it is basically called the left dominance, is what I like to underscore to all of you. Now let's go to the next question. Fibrates, once more our Murphy's law. Hypolipidemic drugs, statins, fibrates, niacin and resins, and hyperlipidemia. Without that there is no entrance at all. So now let us talk about it. So the last moment preparation is like last 2-3 months you must prepare like on Naraka Chaturdasi we will be slowly firing the crackers. Deepavali we are all jubilant. Post Diwali also kids will be playing. Quickly whatever that is leftover stocks are there, they will exhaust. So also now quickly grab those topics which are the favorite topics. Forget about those which you have never read or which are very distant and enigmatic and less yielding. That kind of selective permeability is what is all that is required, doctor. Last moment we become obsessive, suddenly overnight we want to become Aristotle, very difficult. Aristotle and Rome needs a lot of building. So that's the reason this is not the time. Quickly, you should not do mistake in a topic like OCPs, never on a topic like the fibrates, hyperlipidemic states and all. Suppose if you have done a wrong on the CD markers of Langerhans cells, excusable in the entrance, no problem, because nobody can be really obsessive about those number game and remember CD1A is definitely Langerhans cell, I don't think. But topping is all the game of rightly answering those 80% of frequently asked topics, okay? And that too you need to have precision. Exactly you must know which hyperlipidemia cholesterol plus triglycerides rise, in which hyperlipidemia only cholesterol will rise. All these are the small nitty gritty which is frequently tested. So basically fibrates are used as an accessory therapy, they are a stepney in the hyperlipidemia management. It is the statins which are the king among the chemicals. So they are less effective in lowering the LDL, but they are very good especially for improving the HDL and bringing down the triglycerides. That is one major advantage. So syndrome X, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, etc., their hypertriglyceridemia is the problem and fibrates definitely have a role. Now fibrates act on a very important receptor called PPAR, which is peroxisome proliferator activated receptor, and typically these are the intracellular receptors PPARs, and they are the ones which modulate the carbohydrate, fat and adipose tissue differentiation. Can you tell me, doctor, which drug in the diabetes that we use will also act upon the PPAR? Pioglitazone, thioglitazone, etc. They are all the ones they act once more on the PPAR is what need to be basically remembered. Most of the fibrates can cause a mild stomach upset and myopathy is a possibility, and there is a only problem with them. So there is a reason. What would be the correct answer here, doctor? They definitely act on the PPAR alpha, and are they the drug of choice in type 3 hyperlipidemia? Was it the option given? Those who have taken the exam. So actually, what is type 3? How is it special? Type 3 is the dis-beta lipoproteinemia. Both triglycerides will increase in type 3 hyperlipidemia and also the cholesterol will increase. Now let us be clear about our concepts, doctor. Very simple to remember. All but one, that is the type 2A, except type 2A, type 1, type 2B, type 3, type 4 and type 5. All of them will show the elevated values of the triglycerides. That is the simple way to remember. Some generalizations. That is in this type 1, type 2B, type 3 and type 5, serum cholesterol is elevated and also triglyceride is elevated. So there is a reason type 2A is an exception where triglycerides are not elevated, only cholesterol is only elevated, is what I like to emphatically mark for you. So type 3 is called dis-beta lipoproteinemia, otherwise called the broad beta disease, and it is also called the remnant removal disease also. Now what is the close mimicker to the type 3 type of dyslipidemia, doctor? Type 2B also is very close, because even that will cause a high amount of cholesterol and triglyceride and can be confused. But the point is, the patients who have type 3 hyperlipidemia have got specially ideal intermediate density lipoproteins, which is a VLDL remnant, that is in a very high concentration, which will differentiate type 3 from that of the type 2B hyperlipoproteinemia, is what you need to basically remember. So hyperlipidemia is one topic where God lies in details applies, where you must be very sure about small differences between one and the other and what is the treatment of each of them. So for the triglycerides, what are the weapons available for you? Fibric acid derivatives, niacin, omega-3 fatty acids. Statins are not useful for triglycerides, they are useful for cholesterol. So gemfibrozil is the one which is found, at least in a couple of studies, that highly useful, effective in the management of it. Niacin can be useful, but it's a very dirty drug. Too many side effects will be there. Now let's go to the next question. Sertoli cells have the receptors for what? Do Sertoli cells do anything? Do they produce any hormone? Basically, Sertoli cells are also called the nursing cells, mother cells they are called in the testis. What is the role played by them? Typically, Sertoli cells have a follicle stimulating hormone and are activated by it, and they have a FSH receptor which is present on their membrane. The main purpose of them is basically to nurture, to groom, to make them big and great, the sperm cells through all the stages of spermatogenesis. So it is a Sertoli cell which will tell the stories of the war time and make the sperm to become courageous, become a great man in the world, and finally it is the luck of the sperm to enter the world. So Sertoli cells also produce certain important substances which can be a potential question in the next exam to come. They produce inhibin and activin secreted after the puberty, and that regulates the FSH secretion. Anti-Mullerian hormone is produced by it, androgen binding protein, and a very peculiar protein called GDNF, which is the germ cell line derived deuterotropic factor, and ERM transcription factor. Why I am saying this is because Sertoli is there in the question bank, means any question can fire in the future exam as an enigmatic question. I mean, suppose if somebody asks ERM transcription factor is there in which cell, means first of all it's a big confusion. No problem if we do wrong on such questions. But what is very common question is, we have a blood-brain barrier, alveolar capillary barrier. Is there also any blood testis barrier? It is the junction of the Sertoli cells which contribute to it is what need to be basically be remembered. Similarly, they also provide the maintenance for the spermatogonial stem cell niche and helps in the differentiation process. Now, some of the cells in our body are capable of differentiating any part of our life. Some of them cannot differentiate. Which group does the Sertoli belong to? Sertoli also need to be remembered, because once fully differentiated Sertoli cell is unable to further proliferate like a neuron. That is a speciality of the Sertoli. How to recognize that in histology, doctor? Prominent nucleolus is a very important histological feature that makes Sertoli cell to be recognized. HESEC group of organisms. What does HESEC stand for? Haemophilus species, that is Haemophilus parainfluenza, Actinobacillus, Actinomycetoma comitans, Cardiobacterium hominis, Eikenella corrodens and Kingenella kingae, they are all basically called HESEC group of organisms is what has to be remembered. Why are you worried about HESEC? You have a patient who has got a fever, 2D echo is showing the presence of endocardial vegetations, and when the blood culture was sent, it came negative. How is it possible that the blood culture can be negative? One of the causes for the culture negative infective endocarditis, we have to remember about the HESEC. They are very fastidious in their growth and they require special culture requirement. And they are responsible for the gram negative endocarditis among the persons who do not abuse the intravenous drugs, is what has to be basically remembered. They are in fact the part of the normal oropharyngeal flora, and they are the slow growers and they love to have carbon dioxide enriched environment. Just like Mycobacterium love to live in a oxygen rich apartment, HESEC group wants a carbon dioxide rich environment. So abscesses, peritonitis, otitis media, septic arthritis, osteomyelitis other than infective endocarditis, they all can also be caused by the so-called HESEC group. Now who is the odd man out here? Acinetobacter is not A in the HESEC. Who is A in the HESEC? Actinobacillus and Actinomycetum comitans is A in HESEC group. Then what is Acinetobacter? All of you know very well, there are non-pathogenic species, Acinetobacter, and they cause a lot of antibiotic resistance and transmission of it, and they are isolated as the nosocomial infections, and Acinetobacter baumannii is the frequent cause for the nosocomial pneumonia, is what need to be remembered. Psychodynamic theory responsible for the mental illnesses. Who are the pioneers in this field, doctor? There are basically psychodynamic theory is the study of the human behavior from the point of view of the motivation, why we are demotivated, why we are really not, though we have a burning zeal to win, but we are not ready to do efforts. So that is a common state of albuminocytologic dissociation that happens in our every level of life, honestly speaking. So what is the reason for it? They found that it is all the conscious and unconscious state of mind, the genetic constitution, environment, they all have got an interplay, which is all responsible, called the psychodynamic theory of the mental illnesses. The great man in the first row on the left is Sigmund Freud, and this is another great man, Carl Jung. They are the two pioneers in this theory. According to the Freud, there is an ego which he sees battling with three other forces. The ID, the superego and the outside world, there is a continuous battling, and honestly failures are not there in the result paper, they are there in our minds. We fail before exam sometimes and we win before exam also, let me tell you. So it is all depend upon the minds, how can a small trifle can cause it. So that's the reason, doctor, the unconscious conflict between the ego and these three forces, ID, superego and the outside world, that is all very, very important. What is in HIV the window period? Classically it is between infected with HIV and serology becoming positive is called window period, generally 30 days. Generally until 3 months you have to be very sure. Only after 3 months seronegative you can be declared okay for the world. Landsfield grouping basically is based upon the specific carbohydrate antigen for the hemolytic streptococci classification. This is the one which is used. Most of the species belong to the group A. You must be very sure. Pyogenes is group A, Agalactiaceae is group B, and Enterococci belong to the group D. Small questions, they make a big difference. Intensive management of diabetes means what? Basically 3 to 4 daily injections of insulin, testing blood glucose 4 to 7 times a day, adjusting insulin dose to match the exercise and food intake and the diet and exercise plan, monthly visit to the clinician. It's all called intensive management. It is especially required if you have a pregnant patient with diabetes, or similarly a post-transplant state also, you don't want rejection, and autonomic neuropathy, a complication of the diabetes, also is considered to improve if you happen to introduce the strict intensive diabetic management protocol is what need to be basically remembered. Now let us talk about the polio. All of you know very well, symptomatic cases only constitute the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot of submerged portion. And inactivated polio vaccine, can you give it in child less than 3 years? Is it the option? Without much of recall bias flowing into it? Is the same option? I find that it is equally good as much as the option C. Anyway, IM injections are known to predispose. Even B also becomes correct, because what is the advantage of IPV and disadvantage? IPV is not live, so it is easier to manage, and there is no chance of vaccine associated polio, which is more there with the OPV, and very little intestinal immunity is given by the IPV. That's the reason there is a chance if you give IPV that you can make the wild virus to become much more wilder and spread in community. And if you plan to give IPV, what is the protocol? Typically 3 injections, 6 to 8 weeks of age and 4 to 6 months of age, second dose. So definitely the child is less than that of 3 years of age, then it should become also a possible answer. Now let's go to the next question. National polio surveillance, what is true? Now what is mopping and what is AFP surveillance? AFP surveillance, below what age you want to do, doctor? Less than 15 years you wanted to do the AFP surveillance. Now what do you mean by mopping? Basically the mopping up immunization is, first you will give a OPV, pulse polio, and then the virus become restricted to a specific geographic area. Once it is restricted to specific geographic area, then you will be attacking that area by stepping up your immunization protocol. So mopping up is typically done to finally break the chain of viral transmission after it got restricted to a specific geographic area. After doing the pulse polio immunization is called as the mopping up ceremony. Now let's go to the next question. Oligohydramnios is in renal agenesis, and all the other are basically the causes of the polyhydramnios. Now stem cell typically transforms to the other tissues. Then what is this process called? Little English. Transdifferentiation versus that of dedifferentiation. D means it is going back, UKG to LKG. Then transdifferentiation is a non-stem cell transforms into a different type of cell, or already if it is a differentiated stem cell, then it will be establishing another differentiated cell, is all transdifferentiation, which more often suits as the question calls for. Now let's go to the next question. Respiratory viruses, let us talk about them. Respiratory syncytial virus, definitely bronchiolitis, it is the most common cause. Measles late complication can be subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. Was it septic or aseptic? What was given in exam, doctor? Aseptic was given? Septic. Then it is like a striptease. There is no big enigma about the question. Mumps causes aseptic meningitis, not septic, it is not pyogenic. Anyway, at least I was thinking in children and adults does he want to ask. So basically it causes in both children and adults, but children it is much more common, but it definitely causes aseptic meningitis. Prions are those proteinaceous infectious particles responsible for the Creutzfeldt-Jakob. is what need to be remembered. Now this is an interesting question. Once more our traditional Murphy's law. Carcinoma endometrium, cervix, ovary, breast, brain, bone. Without that there is no paper. So that's the reason doctor, already bone tumors one question came. What is that classification? Manchester in Ainkella or Aikenella, whatever. So that question has come. And carcinoma cervix, 2-3 questions came. Ovarian tumors, any question came? In the whole of it, okay, ovarian was given an exception. Then you have endometrial carcinoma. And that's the reason, doctor, what I am saying is, our life is in our control 80% of times, but the remaining 20% make the remaining 80% lost. So that should not happen. So now let us talk about endometrial carcinoma. What is the staging? What are the specific indications for giving radiotherapy in the case of the carcinoma endometrium? If the endometrial carcinoma on biopsy is poorly differentiated, if it is deeply invasive into the myometrium, then they require post-operative radiation. Outside the uterus, if it has spread, then radiation is required post-operatively. Similarly, lymph node metastasis, if it is there also, post-op radiation is very much recommended. Peroxidase enzyme, typically where is it used for? Estimation of what? For the qualitative detection of the blood and hemoglobin in the biological products, you will be using the peroxidase activity of the hemoglobin, and you will be using an organic hydroperoxide in order to prove that. So HB estimation, peroxidase enzyme are very much associated. Who will test the eye in the case of the school children? Testing eye need to be done by a doctor. You want ophthalmologists, that many diploma and MS are not available. So primary health center physician, doctor himself is supposed to basically take care of the eye health service, and he is expected to give a coverage for at least 5,000 to 6,000 children a year. In order to provide the eye checking is considered with the protocol. OCP is contraindicated with the rifampicin, which induces the P450 enzyme system. How does the vitamin K function, doctor? Vitamin K is lipophilic, and carboxylation of the glutamate is the mechanism by which it will be acting on. And other than blood coagulation factors, which else require the carboxylation of the glutamate residue, doctor? Even in bone metabolism, you have osteocalcin, which is also called the bone GLA protein. It requires the carboxylation of its glutamate, and also in vascular biology also. Now what is the function of PHC? Not only primary health care, it is the essential health care for all is a more universal definition of a PHC doctor's role. Basically, lysosomal storage disease is the hydrolysis which are basically deficient in the lysosomes, and that lead to the accumulation of the undigested molecules interlysosomally, which are called the lysosomal storage disorders. Now ureter develops from where? Another traditional question. All of you know very well, at the 5th week of development, the ureteric bud will be arising from the mesonephric duct, Wolffian duct as a diverticulum, and the ureteric bud in turn will be dividing and giving rise to the renal pelvis, calyces, collecting tubules, etc., etc. Then what is this pronephros? Pronephros is too rudimentary. It is more important in the vertebrates, our primates, not in us. And by about day 20 it will be lost, and mesonephros is the one which is there with us. Prevalence means what? Incidence into the time. So there is a reason, doctor, as the duration of the disease increases, for example tuberculosis, though you have brought down the sputum positivity, disease continues. So there is a reason the prevalence will be in fact be more than that of the incidence in the case of chronic conditions like tuberculosis, whereas food poisoning like conditions which are of a very short illness, there the prevalence will be shorter, incidence will be higher, is what I like to underscore. The child has a respiratory distress, scaphoid abdomen, and apical pulse is deviated towards the right side. What is your diagnosis? Congenital diaphragmatic hernia, where you can see commonly it is left sided, and there is a protrusion of the intestinal contents into the lung, and that will deviate the heart to move on to the right side. and that also leads to pulmonary hypoplasia. And what are the different types, doctor? You have posterolateral Bogdalex hernia, which is there, anterior Morgagni's hernia and the hiatal hernia. Left-sided Bogdalek is the most common type out of all the three. And because intestine move into the thorax, there is a scaphoid abdomen, barrel-shaped chest, signs of respiratory distress, etc., will be there. Then what do you want to do? If at all you are suspecting the congenital diaphragmatic hernia, place one nasogastric tube and start the suction. And also avoid mask ventilation and immediately intubate the patient. And if you intubate and connect to the ventilator, don't blow it up. And these patients may require extracorporeal membrane oxygenation because their lung has become almost hypoplastic because of this intestines protruding into the thorax. And another thing is hypocalcemia, hypoglycemia, they are highly vulnerable to die. That's the reason glucose and calcium levels need to be strictly well maintained. What is positive Schick test? Are we doing Schick test? I have never seen. In MD, post-MD, pre-MD, never. But spoken a lot about it. So that's the reason we need to know at least. Schick test is an intradermal test, and it is the presence of the antitoxin which is tested in the state of hypersensitivity to the diphtheria toxin. Now the examiner asks, if it is negative, is he positive, I mean immune, or if it is positive, is he immune? Okay, what is your guess? Natural guess. Negative means if the person is immune to the diphtheria. And positive reaction is typically if he is susceptible to diphtheria. Can we use the same rule for man too? If we apply, it will be fatal. We can't apply the same rule, right? So a lot of my friends applied. That's the reason I am saying. Then what is pseudopositive? They can have allergy towards the diphtheritic toxin. We don't know whether they are sensitive or immune, but they are allergic at least. Then combined means they are susceptible and also allergic. Both the things will be there, which is called the combined reaction. Now what is true about the Corynebacterium diphtheria? Does the Corynebacterium has got an invasion, doctor? It never invades. It will never have deep invasion. And the diphtheritic toxin expression is basically mediated by a gene, not a chromosome. So I think possibly toxigenicity by the chromosomal change may be the possible answer. And metachromatic granules, very much seen in the case of the Corynebacterium diphtheria. They contain the polyphosphates, they are the energy storage sites, and methylene blue staining is the one which we will be using. And what is Elec gel precipitation test, doctor? Very simple. We will be soaking the surrounding culture medium with the antitoxin. If the toxin is there, then it will create the lines. So which is typically found in the case of the Clostridium diphtheria, which is toxin producing. So A, B and C in this typically become the correct options. Now what is not a component of the informed consent in a clinical trial? So there are some rights and certain informed consent. These are the two components if you are conducting any clinical trial. You can place a patient in a clinical trial only if he wishes to come and join. And also participant cannot lose the access to his regular medical care. Just because you are giving a novel drug, you should not stop him on the conventional traditional drugs. Like that some rules are there. And also the introduction, purpose of study, subject selection, procedure, risks and discomfort, alternative treatments available, withdrawal, cost of payment, confidentiality, they are all the components. So I don't know what were the other options given among this. Now let's go to the next question. Whether the following is not used as a sedative, but it can lead to development of sedation. All of you know first generation antihistamines. They are very much known for their sleep promoting action, and tricyclic antidepressants also. What is their main problem? They are anticholinergic. That's the reason they can cause urinary retention, dry mouth, constipation, sedation, weight gain, sexual dysfunction. They are all the important adverse effects. Cushing's disease has got central obesity, easy bruisability, glucose intolerance, even hypertension also. Then what is the option available? Only probably examiner is trying to talk on the adjective episodic. Episodic is a term which you can use classically for FEO. not always for everything. So that's the reason possibly B could be the answer here. Now what does the basement membrane contain? Another meningeal level question. Laminin, nidogenin, entactin, have you heard of all of them? Very difficult unless you are a platinum medalist or something else, or insane about reading in library. But anyway, some wild guess need to be made. Entactin actually is a synonym for nidogen. So you have a collagen type 4, proteoglycan, laminin, fibronectin. Naturally you require something to bridge all this material. That's the reason nidogen 1 or entactin is basically that bridge between the extracellular matrix molecules and the laminin 1 and the type 4 collagen which is there on the basement membrane. So that is the whole purpose. That's the reason, doctor, laminin, nidogenin, entactin, they are all the components of the basement membrane but not the rhodopsin in this given case. So laminins, nidogen has got another name also. It is also called perlican in addition to entactin. I think we are talking Greek. Let's go to the next question. A gravida 3 female, history of 2 mid-trimester abortions, presents at 22 weeks of gestation. Are you sure it is 22 weeks, doctor? Because this 22 is little atypical. I will come to the point. Now what is the most appropriate management? All of you know, funneling of the cervix which is given as a finding, it is suggestive of what? Very good. It is suggestive of incompetent cervix. Cervix has got one internal os and external os. It is the opening of which part of that os is called funneling, doctor? Internal os, with still the external os being closed. So initially it will cause a T-shaped one, then Y-shaped one, V-shaped one, U-shaped one. The moment U-shape means even external os also is become patulous, and that is the time where there is a mid-trimester abortion. Funneling is in a very early stage where still external os is closed but internal os is wide open. So typically McDonald's cerclage is a procedure which is done at about 16 weeks of gestation. So McDonald's cerclage is typically done at 16 weeks of gestation. What are you able to appreciate here in the ultrasound? This is the fetal head, this is the cervix, you can see the internal os, and it is just giving the way with the external os still being closed is a typical thing, but here a cerclage has been applied. So the mid-trimester losses, if they are there, what are the differential diagnosis for the incompetent os? Even the infection, intrauterine death, ruptured membranes, etc. must be kept in mind. Generally 13th to 17th week of gestation is the time where the cerclage procedure is being done. And before you do the cerclage, another favorite question of examiner, what are the criteria that need to be satisfied? The length less than 2.5 centimeters, cervical length, funneling greater than 5 millimeters, they are important prerequisites. Now what are the ways by which you can apply the cerclage? You have got 3 methods. McDonald's cerclage, where a pursing stitch is being placed in the cervix to clinch it close, and Shirodkar's is also a pursing stitch, but here the cervix and the underneath skin are the ones which are being abutted, and you have an abdominal cerclage which is available where the body and the cervix are being abutted by an abdominal incision in place. So that's the reason McDonald's stitch would be good, but still this 22 weeks is not actually the appropriate time where it is typically applied. Now you also have another option, Fothergill stitch. For which condition you use this Fothergill stitch? Cervical amputation Fothergill stitch is typically done for the uterovaginal prolapse is what has to be remembered. Now nitric oxide, what is false about it? Another favorite topic of examiner. So it is a cyclic GMP which is elevated. It is not used for systemic hypertension, but it is used for the pulmonary hypertension anyway. I don't know whether pulmonary is there or not in the options. And in the lung of the smokers, what happens? Typically the nitric oxide synthase become diminished, hence nitric oxide production become diminished in those who smoke the cigarettes. 23-year-old individual who has otherwise normal complaints of mild pain in his right iliac fossa in a wave form, and typically he become exhausted, there is a hematuria and RBCs are there in the urine. What do you suspect? It is a case of nephrolithiasis, ureterolithiasis in fact, So typically the passage of the stone into the ureter is the time where the pain will begin basically, is what need to be remembered. 40-year-old smoker who is typically complaining of epigastric pain, ST elevation is there. Then what is the next step in the management? Give aspirin and talk about lipid management to him. Or you want to say that probably you would have exercised, you would have been better, lifestyle modification. No, I am a Gen Z doctor, so no talking, no waiting. Thrombolysis is the one which you have to initiate. So it is always good if you initiate thrombolysis within 12 hours with ST segment elevation 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters or more in contiguous leads. And suppose you are given two options. You want to do a balloon, angiogram, angioplasty, primary angioplasty, or do you want to go for thrombolysis, which is preferable? Depends once more on the duration. Suppose if the pain to the balloon time, balloon placement time, suppose if it is going to be delayed, your cath lab is not ready, then it is still preferable thrombolysis need to be initiated sometimes, especially if it is less than 3 hours of duration. Patient is on a low calcium diet for about 6 weeks, and he is, what are the consequences of that? Naturally, low calcium stimulates the parathormone, which once more will retain the calcium. So that is the whole story. So this brings the end of the winter session of 2007 AIIMS, doctor. We had been seeing many winters coming and going. Doesn't matter. The only thing is you have to prepare until you win. Thanks for the patient listening.